Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment, so we're going to get through there with Charles and I, as all others are working as well. So we're going to give you an update as we just give you conclusions of the CIAA. We have updates for the HBCUAC. Some other conferences at the NIA level are going on now, closing up things when you talk about the Sooner Athletic Conference. But big things are going on, big deals. So we'll see what that looks like today as we're getting into it. With that being said, let me get right into our introductions. Welcome to episode 631 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA, I should say, to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletics, aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. In short, we just call it the HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios in Signal Live, KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Shout out to Ralph Cooper. He couldn't even give me time to go out to Bombshells this Saturday. You were out of town doing business, so I couldn't call on my trusted right-hand man. So, man, just had to make it work. I did get a chance to go back and catch the Alpha Eta Lambda graduate chapter meeting, so I felt good about getting back involved and getting some brotherhood with that. So that was pretty cool. But with that being said, it's time to get into some updates and talk. So Charles, let me ask you first, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Doc. I'm doing well. A lot of basketball this past weekend. We're speeding towards, we're in the midst of March Madness now. So a lot of great basketball being played. SWAC coming down to its final weekend before their tournament next week. But we had a lot of exciting tournament action this past weekend.
Good stuff. With that being said, let's get into some updates on some news in the HBCU sports world. What direction do you want to start?
Let me start off with this, and unfortunately it starts off on a somber note, and it does involve the CIAA tournament. But Grammy Award-winning artist Angie Stone was involved in a car crash, and unfortunately she was killed in that car crash. She was 63 years old, but she was en route to the CIAA tournament. She was scheduled to perform, I believe, at halftime of the men's championship game. But unfortunately, she succumbed to her injuries prior to getting there, unfortunately. And they did make an announcement there at the CIAA tournament. So very unfortunate set of circumstances are surrounding the CIAA basketball tournament.
Yeah, particularly when you talk about the tie-in between that. A lot of those fans out to the Angie Stone, certainly condolences to her family and those fans out there that supported that and the connection they had with the CIAA. Hated to hear that news, didn't find out till later, the second part of that connection, but it was just tragic hearing it, that not only that she got in the crash, but she was the only one that perished in the crash.
Right.
Just the way things work out sometimes. Certainly precious is life, and again, prayers to her in terms of going on. G-Boom just put out there, and I didn't realize that she was a Zeta in terms of he's saying rest in peace to the sorrow, as he is a member of Phi Theta Sigma fraternity out there. So certainly, as I talk about the HBCU culture, the sporting HBCU diaspora, those are the things I talk about, just how we are interconnected in multiple ways in this thing that we call the HBCU family. With that being said, get into some more positive news. Staying with the CIAA is Fayetteville State women's basketball claims a championship, which means this is back-to-back titles for them. They were quiet because all the energy was in the Northern Division, and I guess that's because that's where more of the fight were in terms of teams that were trying to navigate the space and getting a divisional champions, and in some ways looked like they had overall better records. That's came down the stretch, you started to glean your eyes back on Fayetteville State and said, well, they're dominating that part of the division in terms of the Southern Division, and they were the champions last year. I think people started saying, well, they might be in a position to do it again, and they proved that to be correct for those that rewarded and said that. So shout out to Fayetteville State on the women's side to get their championship as the Taylor Trotter gave the Broncos 11-8 lead early in that matchup, was able to get it done in terms of how it looks. Just for quickly, MVP for the women's championship was Nia Wilkins of Fayetteville State. The women's tournament MVP for that was also Nia, as she got it done. A couple of folks represented on that all tournament team besides Nia for Fayetteville State was also Kiana McLaughlin, who put in work to help bring home that championship in terms of what that looks like. So shout out to the Fayetteville State Broncos. The ladies represented the institution and make it back-to-back with 2 in a row as they are going to go dancing as they put on not so much the Cinderella shoes, but they certainly put on those sneakers.
Absolutely.
With that being said, what other direction you want to go on in terms of providing some updates?
Well, let's stay with the CIAA as the Virginia State men's basketball team take home their first title since 2019 as they knocked off Bluefield State. The game was a back and forth affair that was filled with excitement. However, Virginia State found themselves on top and would go on to claim their first title since 2019, defeating the Big Blues 71-64. So Bluefield State, make mention of them. Yeah, surprise team in the tournament that got all the way to the championship game, and they had a really good championship game against Virginia State. Virginia State was able to pull it out in the end, but when you take a look at the championship MVP, it was Jacob Cooper from Virginia State. He was the CIAA men's tournament MVP, Food Line men's championship MVP. And then when you take a look at some of the guys on the CIAA men's all-tournament team, Elijah Davis from Bowie State, Rail Williams from Bluefield State, Keyshawn Smith from Virginia Union, Jarrett White from Virginia State, a lot of Virginia State representation, Peter Sorber from Lincoln, Pennsylvania, Jordan Hines from Bluefield State, and Jacob Cooper from Virginia State, all on the CIAA men's all-tournament team.
Good stuff, good stuff. I'm going to stay with basketball with some of these championships. I'm going to shift down south to the HBCU AC. Shivery's not there, so we'll start with women again. Philanda Smith topped Wiley. Wiley out of Texas. I had a little tug, see if they could get it done, but not to be. Shout out to the number 4 seed after some of those early seeds got upset. Philanda Smith got hot, and they continue to dominate as they went through the tournament, including a pretty solid victory over number 6, Wiley University. They defeated them 49-38 to capture what will be known as the inaugural 2025 HBCU AC Hope Credit Union Basketball Championship that was played on Sunday. It was at Stillman College at the Birthright Alumni Hall. And as we know, this conference changed its name earlier the year, and that's why I said for the inaugural under the new iteration of the nomenclature known as HBCU AC. Got a chance to watch some of that on HBCU Plus. Shout out to them for putting that up there And I really like the championship design of the banner, how they bring them all to the court, make sure they get some really good pictures, acknowledging the players as they win. Uh, and then they allow them to cut down the nets as everybody does these days. So that was pretty cool. Let's stick with the HBCU if you would. I'll give you the spoils to talk about the men's side. But before we do that, I'm sorry, let me say the MVP of the women's side was Miracle Thomas for Philander Smith in terms of the all-tournament team. Go ahead.
Oh, no doubt. Dillard, the Blue Devils, they knocked out Philander Smith to claim the 2025 HBCU AC title. Been training Phillips delivered 2 steals and layups in the final 2 minutes to lead the number 3 seed Dillard to a 74-72 win over the number 5 seed Philander Smith in the finals. So shout out to Dillard. The win secured Dillard's 4th conference tournament title and his first since winning 3 straight from 2016 to 2018. So Dillard takes on the trophy there in the HBCU, like you said, the inaugural HBCU AC tournament championship.
MVP was Bentraven Phillips of Dillard getting it home. Big Blue. Good job for Dillard University representing down there in the HBCU AC out of New Orleans. They will be going dancing as they put on their sneakers as well. All 4 of these teams punch their automatic tickets. What's nice about the NIA, if your conference is over 10 members, I think as AD told us as they were doing expansion, they get 2 bids. So you have 2 teams, both for the men's and women's, that will be going dancing to the NIA tournament.
Nice.
We're here shortly in terms of where they will be ranked in terms of the tournament. That'll be fascinating to see what's going on. So I'm fascinated with that. Before we get into this first break, I do want to talk a little bit about this. This kind of started coming out on Friday. The Southern Heritage Classic is not dead as of yet, as people would say, in terms of the early demise of the Southern Heritage Classic was greatly exaggerated. Great move by the promoter who decided to shift the dates and was able to work things out with the venue and shifted the dates 2 weeks such that they could bring in what is a conference game, Alcorn State and Arkansas Pine Bluff. Arkansas Pine Bluff is issued another contract. They had a 2-year contract previously where they played Tennessee State, but they'll get to stay in the Classic, which is pretty great news for them. Oh, essentially what happened here is Alcorn was going to go to Pine Bluff, and they shift the site location from Pine Bluff to Memphis for the Southern Heritage Classic, which is 2 weeks later than when that was originally scheduled in early September. So it seems to be working out. A quote here from Fred Jones says, "We are thrilled to welcome Alcorn State to Memphis this September to take on UAPB." He also was quoted as saying, "For the first time in our history, there is added significance to this year's event as this will be a conference game for both teams, as I mentioned." So fascinating to see how this did work out. Wanted to get your thoughts before we get into that break of how things have shifted, moved quickly, and ultimately it seems things were able to get done where you get a conference game out of the SWAC in the Southern Heritage Classic that features Alcorn State and Arkansas Pine Bluff.
But as you mentioned, good job by Fred Jones to stay nimble with regards to moving the date to where these teams can play each other. There is the significance of it actually being a conference game. But then the big thing that I take a look at, especially with Alcorn, they have a tremendous alumni base there in Memphis. So that's going to be huge with regards to the attendance of this game. You take a look at Alcorn, much like Jackson State, big alumni in Memphis, Nashville area. But then you get an opportunity to kind of be on the big stage, to be in a classic. And we haven't associated with Alcorn with being in very many classics. So I think it's huge for their program as well as UAPB's.
Also, it's interesting in terms of the financial windfall. Sure, it's significant for UAPB because they're moving a home game, but it's still not a huge travel for their fan base that may want to get into Memphis. They've been able to make their trip. It's only 150 miles, which they've been associated with a couple of years, but not far from Dallas, where they have a large fan base as well. But you talk about from Alcorn, they would have to go not only 270 miles to Memphis, additional mileage to get to Pine Bluff. So they shrink that, and so now their fans have a shorter distance to go support their team in this game, and they get to do it in the city of Memphis. So
nothing but a
470 miles travel is pretty good when you think about kind of centralized point of reference.
Yeah, nothing but a 4-hour drive from Alcorn's campus to Memphis. So that should work out very well for their fan base. And I do give them credit. They have a fan base that will get out on the road.
They travel. They get excited.
Saw it with the Celebration Bowl. We saw it with SWAC Championship. When that is a fan base that is very underrated, but they get out and travel.
You're right. You're absolutely right. We've seen that over the years when they've had a chance to put themselves on display as they have won over the last decade. We'll see if they can get back a little bit to their winning ways, thinking about that. But that's another discussion for another day as we get into football, maybe back in July, as it seems like we can't quite escape it. But with that being said, we'll take our first break, come back on the other side. We'll talk about little poll rankings and what's changing in the landscape there. We do have some updates. We'll start with the women's top 5. What's going to be interesting is those next 5. And as we start to close out things, we get to know some champions. And we have some teams chasing regular season championships in multiple conferences, which makes this more interesting than normal. So we'll talk maybe a little bit about that as well. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this first break.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Brandon has his gear on, Tennessee State representing. I like that. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Man, I'm glad I was able to hop on today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. With that being said, we're going to get into the top 5 of the women poll rankings. See what your thoughts are there on that as you continue to be in the mix. Dropping out this week were Texas Southern Tigers. 13-4. We said they had a tough road trip. It was tougher than some people imagine as they dropped two. Particular one that I'm sure that really hurt in Jackson, where they looked like maybe they thought they escaped with a huge win, but with less than a minute left in the game, up 10, they faltered. And credit to Jackson State, they continued to play and push through them and end up getting the home victory for those Jackson State Tigers over Texas Southern Tigers that dropped them to 13-4 and out of the reach of what you would think would be a championship, as Southern has earned a share of that. And we'll talk a little bit more about them. But let's talk about those teams receiving votes. Receiving votes, Jackson State Tigers. They had 12-4, 47. While they got the victory over Texas Southern, game before that, they really probably had one of the shockers of the year. They lost to Prairie View, and it wasn't really close. But they are at the top receiving votes as they start to close down the latter part of the season. With that being said, we said Texas Southern Tigers dropped out, but they're still in the voting mix with 35. And then you get into the MEAC with Cotton State Eagles at 8-5 with 21 points, if you would. Grambling State Tigers at 10-6 with 16 points, and Alcorn State Braves close out the final five when we look at the total top 10 with 14. Let's get into the top five, where we do have a new entrance this week. Alabama Bulldogs, 13-3. They just continue to muscle through a season, 20 wins, and they're in the mix of where they will close down things this season. 51 points. They were not ranked last week, but Coach Thornton is getting it done in terms of what she's getting her ladies to get done on the court. At number 4, North Carolina A&T Aggies. This is interesting here. They are at 13-3, 62 points. They were previously ranked 3, so they dropped one. They split games this week, but they have the benefit as also Drexel, that was behind them a game, instead of being tied with them going down the stretch, they also lost. So they still have a 1-game lead in terms of their conference standing in the CAA, known as the Coastal now, previously as the Colonial. At number 3, we have the Howard Bison, 12-1 on the season, 61 points, previously ranked 5. They just continue to win, very solid. Probably one of the quieter teams that has had a great season all year long. And they have a chance to make a major statement as they close out the season for a regular season championship. Co-championship it would be. But they move up 2 spots from number 5. At number 2, Southern Jaguars, 14-2. So you see they have a game up on Alabama A&M. They need 1 to close things out. They have a first place vote, 73 points, and remain at number 2. Number 1 is Norfolk State Spartans, and they're just rolling at 13-0. They add a first place vote to 7. They're at 80, and they remain number 1. But with all this work that goes in, they have that closing season matchup with Howard, which will be fascinating for everybody to watch. And I think most folks believe they're going to win the game. But can Howard even make it close? And they have that puncher's chance, and they somehow get the upset before we even get to the madness of the tournament. With that being said, I'm going to go with Brandon first, since he's joined us for this special occasion. Brandon, what do you think of the top 5 in week number 9? Can't hear you.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a solid list when you kind of look at, starting from 5, and you kind of touched on it with what Coach Thornton has done with that Alabama A&M program in year 1 cannot be understated enough. She's done a phenomenal job, and that was really a home run hire. Looking at the Aggies, I might not have dropped them from number 3 to 4. I probably would have kept them at 3, considering like so they did split some games, and they're still really right in the mix. And I know David would appreciate that. But when you look at just what they've been able to get done,
what about them independent people? Boy, they sure stick together.
If we don't, who will?
That's true. What I thought y'all the one that left us. Y'all left us. Midwestern Athletic Conference decided to do your own thing, and North Carolina A&T had to left the MEAC after leaving the CIAA. That's on y'all.
Well, you know my thoughts on it. I would love to come back outside and play with y'all, but this keep on punishment. We're like the meme. We're standing out at the window just watching y'all have all the fun. So.
Oh, that's real good. Great comments on the top 5. In all seriousness, I think you could make the argument for North Carolina A&T, but at some point, when you lose, I mean, there's not too many places where you get credit for losing.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, at the end of the day, win the conference, make that statement, and then you'll see how the polls react to crowning the championship. But again, people forget this is week to week. We don't have an overall poll rankings. And the other thing that I think people forget about is Howard had like 7 D1 wins.
Yeah.
I know that's been a long time ago. A&T, while they had injuries, they didn't get but 2 Division I victories. So you can't just put everything on saying this coastal conference is all that, because you had a chance to show some of that in your non-conference schedule, which you did not do. And so I think when you look at the totality, where you start and how you built up, and then you go week to week, I think you have to be careful about the biasness that you have, that you put everything on just because you're in a conference, as conference play is conference play regardless of the teams you play, because everybody's equal at it. So the equal challenge among teams is the same per conference, not in terms of how you would rank a team going into a tournament seeding. That would be something different. Charles, your framework in terms of the top 5, after I put a little more mustard on that, to use a phrase.
Well, I'm gonna start with the team that's dropped out receiving votes with Texas Southern. They really missed their point guard, Aaliyah Henderson. You could see that down the stretch in that loss to Jackson State. They really did not have a ball handler that could, kind of help them down the stretch. So that's huge. And we'll see if she comes out of concussion protocol this upcoming week. I can't say enough about Alabama A&M, what they've done. Tremendous job. 20 wins on the season. Big weekend this upcoming weekend, because there's still a little something to play for with regards to Southern and Alabama A&M in terms of winning the SWAC regular season there. So that's going to be very interesting. North Carolina A&T, we'll see if they can continue to keep pace up there. Like you said, they dropped 1, but still they should be in good shape. Big 1 versus 3 matchup this Thursday on ESPNU with Norfolk State and Howard. In terms of both of those teams, Norfolk State, I believe they won 15 in a row. Howard, they won 9 in a row. Somebody's got to get an L, so that's going to be a very interesting one to sit back and watch. But I do expect Norfolk State to be right there. But Southern Jaguars, week in, week out, they get a good punch, but they are a true team. Like I said, you don't see not one player in the top 20 in scoring, not one player in the top 20 in rebounding, but they played some dogged defense. They really get after you, and it shows in terms of what they've done in terms of being number 1 in the SWAC.
Check this out, Charles. You laid it out there, but I know sometimes we slunder into basketball season after all the energy we put in the football season, and it going all deep in December, and before you know it, you're celebrating Christmas. You're full of your Christmas dinner plates. That would wish and work out. And then next thing you know, there's some basketball being played, and you're kind of concerned because some records. But at this point, if we can't get you to wake up, to understand that, hey, this is the week that you want to pay attention to close out the regular season. I mean, you have some really, it sets up. You couldn't plan this any more than this. Thursday, Jackson State at Arkansas Pine Bluff. It's important for Jackson in terms of seeding. You have Alabama State at Southern. Southern needs this game to keep their own control of earning a regular season championship. Alcorn State at Valley. The Braves have been playing really good basketball late. They want to continue that run for the tournament and increase their seeding from that perspective. Then you have Alabama, A&M, and Grambling. Obviously, they mixed it up earlier. But Alabama A&M needs to do this because of Saturday. You get a chance for Alabama, A&M, and Southern.
There we go.
That
there it is right there.
A 2 versus 5.
Yeah.
1 and 2 in the conference standings with a game difference at this point. So it can go down to literally being able to get that regular season championship on the court, whether you're talking about at least at a minimum a share of it, or you're talking about getting it outright. So that is fascinating in terms of how that plays out. And look, you have your rivalry game of Texas Southern and Prairie View that's going on. Obviously, you have another rivalry game of sorts, Jackson State and Valley on Saturday. So it's going to be fun. You have the rivalry game of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. That is setting up for seedings with a lot on the line. And then, obviously, you talked about on the MEAC side, you have Norfolk State and Howard. While Norfolk State has dominated throughout the season, they only have a 1-game lead over Howard. So Howard is in a position to get at least a share of this, and depending on the point differential, because if they win it, that means they would split because Norfolk State won the first game. So they need it for the share of that. And then depending on what they can get done, can determine. And I know Lennon is out there talking about, what are y'all talking about? He said, this would not be close. But I'm fascinated to watch this game just for that. Well, how would be able to even make it a game? Can they somehow slog this out? Can they really they're on a 10-game win streak themselves? But everybody just sees Norfolk State in the field. Rightfully so. Norfolk State came in with over 10 Division I wins to open the season. As we say, week to week with 2 wins over SEC. That has certainly a deep conference in terms of what we see at the winners level. So it's fascinating when you set this up. And then you got North Carolina A&T over there in the Colonial. Since we have Brandon representing Independence, we're going to make sure we do our due diligence and give them the fairness of the luck. They have a chance to earn a regular season championship. Tennessee State, I want to give a little credit to their women because in the backhand of the season, when you talk about those last 5-6 games, this is a team that I was going to bury, and it wasn't hard because they buried themselves. But they got off the mat after losing 9-10 in a row, and ran off. 4 out of the last 6, 5 out of the last 8 type games, as they were playing much better to stretch. So I'm kind of interested to see, can they spoil it and at least get a game in this tournament or whatever, how that looks like. So shout out to Tennessee State Tigers, deservedly so, at least fighting through the season when they could have packed it up and closed it out. You've seen a little bit. With that said, let's go to our second break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the men and see what they have to say on that side of things.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Phil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's look at the men's side of things. No one dropped out, but still a lot of excitement, a lot of movement on the men's side, although a team didn't drop out. And that's including for those top five as well as those bottom five. So I'm fascinated to see. So let's start with that team that nobody dropped out. We'll start with the ranking, looking at that. And then we'll get into those receiving votes. When we talk about receiving votes, think about these five. We have Texas Southern Tigers that are 11-6. You have Tennessee State Tigers right behind them at 12-8. They've won 6 out of the last 8. This is a program that was fascinating to me. They with a rich Charles. Just check this out. Brandon knows this. I know you've been focusing because you've been studying, calling your game. But this is fascinating to me. This team finished 12-8. They won 6 out of the last 8. We talked to the AD when we were talking about football, and they were on a hot streak. At that time, I think they won 5 out of 6. They lost a couple after that, and I was like, oh, they're buried again. They finished 12-8. But guess what? They're seeded in the tournament, Charles.
Where are they seeded?
They're 3.
Wow.
They finished 3. The SEMO, they won the conference, was 15-5.
Wow.
SIUE is 13-7. They finished second. So they advanced all the way to the quarterfinals. So not only are they hot, but they got so hot they jumped up to a 3 seed because everybody else literally beat all the teams. And they play a 20-game conference schedule. So you playing everybody on the way. Yeah. So they playing like you see at the Power 4. I like to say Super 2 and Power 2. In terms of that, but just give you some magnitude. I just looked at it and amazed me. I was like, I don't know what to think about these State Tigers. I'm fascinated. I'm gonna keep an eye. They're tournament this week, so you can kind of get a
like that.
Sort of early mix. I'm wondering what that is. Then you have Alabama State points at 10-6. Exactly. Alabama State at 10-6. They're 30. They're in the mix. FAMU. Florida A&M Rattlers at 10-7, 26. They had a tough home streak. It looked like they will sneak in and get that puncher's chance against Southern and at least make things really go down the stretch. And interesting is set it up for a big weekend with Southern to see if they can finish it up. But Southern does what they do on the road, and they found a way to tangle those Rattlers, as even the Rattlers had a late 1-point lead with 3-some minutes left in the game. Southern finds a way to get some big basket, big stops, big three. And they win it close, but they win it. And that's what counts when it goes in the column. So shout out and kudos to Carlos as we've recognized him as they've won a championship. And let me tell Carlos, forgive me, because I thought the Rattlers were going to make a move and get it done. But no. Alcorn State Braves at 9-7 close it out in terms of the top 5. That being said, let's get into, the bottom 5. Let's get into the top 5. Looking at the top 5, this is some interesting. You might shake this up and see what they talk about. Norfolk State Spartans, they fall from 2 all the way to 5, 10-3. But they took 2 L's this week, including the South Carolina State that is in a tie with them in first place in the conference. I'm just like, what happened in the MEAC this weekend. Chaos took place. So it will go down the stretch. This last game means everything now, and it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like when South Carolina State hosts North Carolina Central, which is a classic.
Ooh.
They went to overtime earlier, border rivalries as you would. Obviously, we know what takes place on the football field, and now it's going to go to the hardwood for the men, and it should be interesting. Norfolk State has to deal with a pesky Howard team that has been a rival. Howard's not playing back late, but they are at home. So Norfolk State, you know they're going to be excited about that matchup. So the MEAC gets interesting this week as well. But heading to number 4, we have the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. They sit at 12-5, 68 points, and they move up a ranking at number 5 as they got it done against the Louisiana team because they got the win over Southern.
They got the win.
Things at least more interesting than going into Monday, but they got that win at home, big win, and then they came back and backed it up against Grambling. So Bethune-Cookman Wildcats are hot right now. They've won 4 in a row. They sit at 12-5, and they have locked down the position in the top 4. I think the 3 spot is locked in for them in the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see as one of the Florida schools not only get in the tournament, but they get in as one of the hottest teams out there. And this Florida school is the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, the only private school in the conference as they represent for the few private schools at the HBCU-wise that at the Division I level. We'll see what that looks like. At number 3, Jackson State Tigers quietly are running. In fact, not quite somebody gave him a first place vote, Charles. 12-4, 89.3. Remaining number 3, big win as they got it done. Texas Southern and Prairie this weekend. And number 2, you have South Carolina State Bulldogs. I've talked a little bit about them. They are playing some good basketball. Many people early did not see this team. But a couple of folks out there told us to keep your eyes on South Carolina State. So they're a really good team playing some good basketball. They had 10-3, 3 first-place votes, 101 points. They move up 2 spots after a solid weekend as they now hold tied at the number 1 spot in the conference. Southern Jaguars, 14-2. 8th consecutive week that they held that spot. Road or at home, close or not, more than not, they get the victory with just 2 conference losses. As solid as they get a share of the regular season championship at a minimum, but I'm sure they're greedy. They want it all. 105, number 1 ranking as they continue to do. We'll go with you first, Charles. What are your thoughts in the top 5? As I said, nobody dropped out, but quite a bit of change as things went wild this weekend in various different ways.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. I mean, Norfolk State dropping 2. Did not see that. That wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah, we told everyone to watch South Carolina State.
Yeah, that was going to be a good one. Yeah.
We're living that. You talking about?
Yeah, I thought I was ready to hand over the MEAC tournament to them until, this past weekend. So, but huge win.
I kept telling everybody they wasn't playing like they were, Charles.
Yeah, South Carolina State, they won 8 in a row, vaulted themselves into the top 5 here. Tremendous win for South Carolina State over Norfolk State. Bethune-Cookman, big win over Southern. That's huge when you take a look at them getting it done. Southern had been rolling, but Bethune-Cookman able to knock them off at home. Jackson State is they're my enigma team. They've knocked off Bethune-Cookman twice. They played a barn burner against Southern. I tell you, Doc, next week at the SWAC tournament, I just
put your head on a swivel.
It's too hard to call. It really is. I mean, you're gonna get some top-notch basketball being played next week at the SWAC tournament. So I'm really looking forward to that. Still got this weekend to kind of get through. Congratulations to Southern, regular season champions. But you want all the feel goods going into Atlanta next week.
You ain't even talk about Texas Southern Tigers on the men's side. Alabama State Hornets as well. Florida A&M Rattlers. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
And we know what Texas Southern does when they get to the tournament. I mean, they flip another switch. So it's,
It's not like they just have 6 conference losses. They
right.
Hit the 4th spot, it looks like. With that being said, let's see what Brandon has to say. Brandon, where are you on the top 5?
Well, it goes to show, if you win, you don't have to worry about tumbling down the standings.
Right.
It's kind of like you said. It seemed like Norfolk State was cruising along on the path to a conference tournament, and they take a couple bumps and bruises, and then the next thing you know, they're looking up at 4 other teams in the top 5. So it's going to be interesting as they close out the regular season. What team are we going to see? Are we going to see?
Your volume went out real quick, Brandon. Brandon just soaking it in.
Yeah, it looked like his volume went out.
Yeah. Brandon, we can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
You got that chilling lean, man. You hit the volume real accidentally. Trying to make sure everybody see that big blue shirt. We got you, man.
I would take one team that I did want to touch on is Bethune-Cookman. And just the job that Coach Theus has done since he's been there. Steady improvement. They're 15-15 this year, so they're one of only 2 teams in the conference that has a 500 or better overall record. 3rd in the conference, so he's doing a tremendous job, and they're going to be, I think, a very dangerous team.
Very, very much so.
We head into the tournament. They're going to be one of those squads that you do not want to play. But outside of that, I mean, when I look at it, and I think the same could be said of South Carolina State. Their team, before it's all said and done, they're going to have a say over who is going to take the MEAC. So a lot of great basketball left to be played, but nonetheless, great top 5 overall.
Good stuff. As we close out on this segment, the other thing that's interesting is the postseason HBCU championship, particular for the Division II programs. I think it's going to be interesting to see who gets bids to that, who decides to participate in that. And then obviously you have, with this ranking, you have some teams with only one team getting out of the MEAC and the SWAC, obviously. You have a lot of deserving teams that certainly could have a chance in terms of first season. So I'm interested to see that that tournament has some legs to stand on with some of these teams coming in.
Absolutely.
Participate in that. With that, let's take our last segment, come back on the other side, talk a little bit about going into the SIAC tournament, as we'll have AD join us. And so we can ask and pepper him with some questions, his thoughts on the SIAC tournament, Charles. With that, we'll be right back after this last break.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you, guys, for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry. brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them I'm hungry.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. So we have Brandon here. Look like we're going to try to get Drew in here to talk a little bit about it, but maybe he's still working to see if he can get in here. With that being said, let's get back into some other talk before and save that space for SIAC. I will say this about the SIAC tournament. It's going to be interesting when you talk about the second part of the tournament, as the first rounds are going to be at home. Those that did not get the entrance, in some framework, it looks like you're kind of following what you've seen at the NBA. When you talk about
Play-in
games for the term they use to get into that 8 seeds, if you would. Those teams are going to play at home. So you get the home court advantage if you finish the regular season strong enough, and then you get yourself to play into the tournament. It's only the top 8 teams go to the site. And the site is going to be, as you've heard now, Forbes Arena and Morehouse College. So Drew is doing work into making sure that works on. But when you listen to the dialogue, shout out to HBCU Game Day with the interview of the commissioner of the SIAC, Dr. Holloman. He talked about the fact that it's a co-hosting site with Clark Atlanta hosting a lot of activities. So some activities besides the games will be at Clark Atlanta, where they'll have some ceremonies celebrating a lot about the tournament. And then you have the actual game that will be hosted at Morehouse College. So I'm fascinated to see how that mix kind of puts together and how that all goes in.
It's not over there.
But with that being said, any general thoughts going in the tournament? Obviously, you have Clark Atlanta on the men's side. They finished first in the East Division. They were number 1 out of the West Division is Miles. And you've seen this happen on both sides. As the women also have Clark finishing first on the East, and then Miles women finishing first on the West. So I'm interested to see, can we get the double-double from either Clark Atlanta or Morehouse, or if you would, Miles College, where you get a split, or will you get some upsets? Any just general thoughts in terms of going in the tournament, who you're looking at, Charles?
Well, I think I noticed with your HBCU AC tournament, you had, I believe, the 3 and 5 seeds that were playing in the championship game. So it kind of jumps out at you like, you wonder if you're going to get a little bit, like AD loves to call it, a little bit of chaos in the tournament. You got some teams. Edward Waters, they won 7-3 down the stretch. Allen won 6-4 down the stretch. Clark 9-1 down the stretch. I'm on the women's side, talking about on the women's side. But then in the West, Miles and Tuskegee bunched right there together. So it'll be really interesting to see, kind of, do we get a little bit of chaos, or is there, that enigma team that I like to call them, that just cause all sorts of mess in the tournament? See how much fun that is. Brandon,
I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to take you back. First part of the segment, we opened about Southern Heritage Classic with Arkansas Pine Bluff getting back in that class. They're going to face Alcorn. Obviously, Tennessee State pulls out, but then you have the Tennessee State with the rival Alabama A&M, a rekindling of that game. What are your thoughts on the Southern Heritage Classic being able to stay in the mix? Now they have a conference game with Alcorn State and Pineville playing in that. What are your thoughts in terms of what that looks like? Brandon, can you hear? No, he can't hear. He's trying to get him in there, and then we got Drew coming in here. Well, as we work on that, bringing Drew into, we'll come back to Brandon and see if we can get a maybe update later with that. But Drew, we kind of introduced a little bit about the SIAC. We got the basics out the way. At the tournament, the final 8 will be held at Morehouse, quarterfinals, co-hosting in some ways because some of the events will be at Clark Atlanta University. I know you want to focus on Morehouse. We're going to give Clark Atlanta a little bit of love. Yeah, just a little bit. But tell us about this tournament. You know, we said that Clark Atlanta has the number 1 seed out of the East. Both of them winning. Fascinating. And then West was Miles, men and women. That's right. But the East, both for men and women, was probably more competitive on that side. Give a little bit of love because I know you'll be proud about this. On the women's side, Tuskegee still in the mix and a team to keep your eyes on. But going to tournament from this perspective, who's the hottest team going into this tournament that may have not actually won a division? Or is it Miles that did win their division? Let's start with the men and then women.
We're going to kill Captain Obvious with Miles. I mean, they went 19-1 with the one being to Morehouse. So they lost first Saturday in January and have not tasted an L since then. So technically, that would be the hottest team, Dr. Cavil. If you want to get down to it, nuts and bolts, I believe they are winners of about 14 in a row. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but you know, every week when you talk about the last 10 with these teams, Miles is on that 10-0 line every week. So that would be the hottest team, just by definition.
Right.
Another team, and I'm not just saying this because I work for them, but Morehouse. Winners of the month of February was good for Morehouse. So right now we'd be on February 32nd. Right now on the Morehouse calendar because
I like that.
we lost one game in the month of February, and that was unfortunately on national TV in front of over 100,000 people when we went out to Oakland, California. That is the only game that we lost in the month of February. Wow. So if you want to talk about the next hottest team, it's got to be Morehouse. One team that I would keep an eye out on, especially on Wednesday in this first round matchup. The matchup to watch on the men's side is going to be Miles Savannah State.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is Savannah State and Miles are the top 2 defenses in the conference. Mm-hmm. And the Savannah State team
often travels.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dr. Cavil. The Savannah State team that Miles is playing is not the same Savannah State team that they beat earlier this season because one coach, Horace Broadnax, is no longer with Savannah State.
That's true.
So this team plays a little bit of a different style than they did under Broadnax. Unfortunately, Morehouse was the first ones to fall victim 2 days after the announcement. So we can tell you that the team that we saw on film was not the team that we played on the court. So Miles, it's going to be tough for Miles to go back to that specific film to recreate that formula that they beat Savannah State. So I would say those would be the 3 that I would keep an eye out on. And one other, Kentucky State. Kentucky State has the number 2 and the number 4 scorer in the SIAC. So just based on number, anytime you got 2 people who both of them averaging over 17 points per game, so that's one of those pick your poison type games. You can always come up with a good game plan to stop one score, but when you have 2 scores, it's a little bit more of a challenge for a coach. And if either one of those guys get off, Kentucky State's going to be a tough out.
Go ahead, Charles.
What about a team like Central State that's gone 7-3 over their last team?
I for professional purposes, I don't want to comment on Central State since that is our first round opponent. But I will say this, with
that was professional.
We did beat Central State by over 20 back in December, but both teams are different than the teams that played in December. So I'll just keep it right there for professional purposes, Charles. Now you and I can chat it up offline, but I'm definitely not bulletin
Not
board.
in a recorded space.
No bulletin board material comes from the marketing department. I might be crazy, but I am not stupid.
Okay.
On the women's side, Dr. Cavil,
Yeah.
Obviously playing Captain Obvious again. Clark Atlanta and is one of the hottest teams. They were the first ones to clinch. They clinched probably 2 weeks ago, if I recall correctly. So Clark Atlanta is definitely a good team. They're a team who can go get it offensively versus Miles, who is at the top of the conference defensively. So should those two meet up in the finals, that's going to be a great clash of style right there between those two teams. Obviously, Tuskegee is a team. Tuskegee's been burned with slow starts and good finishes, but sometimes their slow start has hampered their finish. They've not been able to overcome that slow start. But Tuskegee gets off to a good start. There'll be another good team to look out for. Savannah State impressed me the other day. They've only got 8 active players due to injuries and attrition. And they were actually able to get their first round victory over Kentucky State, I do believe. So another team. And then the surprise team in this field of 8, because just so everybody knows, the men went chalk. You had 1 through 4 in the East, 1 through 4 in the West made it to Atlanta. But Spring Hill upset Edward Waters, friend of the program, Eric Jackson Jr. I was looking forward to chopping it up with Eric in Atlanta, but unfortunately, Edward Waters didn't make it. So that's another one of those teams. Was that a one-hit wonder, or is Hill one of those teams that's getting hot at the right time?
Good point. Good stuff. I want to go in terms of pushing forward. NCAA tournament. Let's go both CIAA and SIC. How many bids CIAA getting first? On the women's side, is it just the champion, or do you see that there might be an at-large team getting in there, getting the invitation as well?
That's going to be tough.
That's what I was afraid of.
And the reason I'm looking at, because of what you have to do is look at the regional rankings, Dr. Cavil.
Right.
And if you've got a team for your conference in the top 4, top half, because they only, 8, there are only 8 spots. If you've got a team in the top 4, there's a good chance you can sneak a second team in. Should the team that's ranked not be the conference champion?
Right.
And I'll take our conference to bear. SIAC is a 1 bid league this year.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't have to ask it. I was going to get to that.
Men or
both
women.
Men and women.
Yeah, both men and women. Because of where the team's right. Miles is 23-2, 23-3, whatever it is. Their record is ridiculous.
But only 20 of those wins.
They're ranked number 7, and you've got a 15 win team that's ranked above them, which shows you the lack of respect that the SIAC is getting. You got a Miles who went 19-1. They've got either 2 or 3 losses outside of the conference, and they can only be number 7.
Wow.
I mean, I know they love all those teams in the Sunshine State Conference, Nova Southeastern, Eckerd, Florida Southern, all those teams and everything. And all those teams are ranked ahead of us. And those are teams that people in our conference have played. Unfortunately, we didn't beat any of them. But I will say one team that is ranked ahead of, we beat Valdosta State. We split with Valdosta State, and Valdosta State is in the top 5.
There it is.
So
one last one is CIAA men. Are they also just one bid?
I really think so. We always got our wishful thinking.
No, that's fine. I just wanted us to know, as I put a little plug in for the HBCU National Basketball Tournament, that bodes well for that tournament because you're
Right.
going to give solid teams
Exactly.
a chance to go play some meaningful basketball in a tournament where they can be crowned the champion of that tournament.
I think we'll definitely see more HBCUs in the NAIA tournament than in any level of the NCAA tournament.
Right. I agree. I think you're spot on it, and that's why we bring you in to have these professional conversations to really catch us up on the mid-major level where we talk about NIA and NCAA. Obviously, one of the things that you alluded to a couple of years ago is we're looking at the expansion of HBCUAC. They get 2 bids automatically. Right. So you can at least get those 2 out of the HBCU. Langston should get a bid, both men's and women's, in terms of their tournaments, regardless how they finish coming in there. Xavier, men's and women's. We know Florida Memorial is going to get their bid. On the women's side, we'll see what that means on the men's side, but that just gives you the extension of HBCUs right there, and that's not even those that are on the chalk bubble line, if you would. So good points. With that, let's give it a close and close it up. Thanks you, Drew, for getting in here. Thank you, Brandon.
And I wish I would have saw your text earlier, Dr. Cavil. I actually would have chimed in from the office, but I didn't see the text that I got in the car. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Doc. I ran up out that place today because getting the tournament.
Yeah, because you're gonna live there
for the tournament is for those who've never been in it is a major undertaking.
Look at that! Look at that! One of the twins. Say hi to your viewership out there. Yeah, he's an HBCU fan early. Thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watch, Charles Bishop. Today we had none other than Brandon King representing the Indy Report, AD Drew giving us some love on the mid-majors, representing Morehouse. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Morehouse Baseball is getting into gear in terms of what they do there with Mike Watch and Charles Bishop. Every Tuesday and Thursday we'll be back. 6 o'clock. We'll be giving you some updates and some basketball going down the stretch. We'll have one eye on that, one eye and a mouth talking to you as we do that as well. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattacavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Facebook and YouTube. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
Drew.
I think he said lecture.
Yeah. Brandon.
Dismissed.